The air was thick with the promise of something wrong that day, a heaviness that clung to my skin like damp fog. I was 15, standing alone at the bus station, my school bag heavy on my shoulder, when his shadow fell over me, a man whose smile felt like a blade hidden in velvet. It was 1996, in a town of 100,000 souls where everyone knew someone but no one knew everyone. I lived in the suburbs where houses sprawled lazily under wide oaks, but my high school was in the city's heart, a maze of concrete and noise. That afternoon, after classes ended, I didn't wait at the usual stop near school. Something, maybe a restless itch, maybe fate, pushed me to walk to the main bus station, where Route 15 began its winding journey home. The platform was a cold slab of gray, littered with cigarette butts and the faint hum of distant engines. I stood under the sign for Route 15, my breath visible in the chilly air, waiting for the familiar rumble of my bus. Route 17 shared the same gate, a detail I barely noted until he appeared. His voice cut through the quiet like a shard of glass. A man, tall and wiry with eyes that seemed to swallow light, leaned toward me. "Has number 17 left yet?" he asked, his tone too smooth, too practiced. I glanced at him. Maybe 30, maybe 40, with a face that could have been forgettable if not for the way his gaze lingered. "Yes, I'm sorry, you just missed it," I said, my voice small, polite. He nodded, then extended a hand. "I'm Mark." His handshake was firm, almost possessive, and his smile didn't reach his eyes. I forced myself to shake back, muttering, "I'm Maya." It wasn't my real name, but it spilled out, a shield against the strangeness of a grown man introducing himself to a teenage girl at a bus stop. Alarm bells rang faintly in my mind, but I pushed them down. "Be polite, Maya. Don't overreact." He asked if I'd just finished school. I nodded, keeping my answers short. "Which school?" he pressed, stepping closer, his shadow stretching over mine. I lied, naming a school across town. "You going home?" I shook my head, the lie coming easier now. "To a friend's house." His questions felt like a net tightening, each one pulling me closer to some unseen edge. When my bus pulled up, its brakes hissing like a warning, I climbed aboard, relief washing over me. But then I heard his footsteps behind me. Mark boarded Route 15, the bus he'd had no reason to take. My stomach twisted. He asked about 17. Why is he here? The bus was half empty, its fluorescent lights casting a sickly glow. I slid into a window seat, clutching my bag like a lifeline. Mark sat beside me, his thigh brushing mine as he settled in. The air grew heavy, thick with the scent of his cologne. Cheap, overpowering, like something meant to mask decay. "What year are you in?" he asked, his voice low, intimate, as if we shared a secret. I lied again, saying I was a junior, though I was only a freshman. "You look too young for that," he said, his eyes tracing my face, my neck. I forced a laugh, my skin crawling. "I get that a lot." He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "Got a boyfriend?" I shook my head, my throat tight. "You should," he murmured, his words slithering into my mind, planting dread. "Feel the weight of his gaze, Maya. You can't escape it." I tried to turn the conversation, asking where he was going. "Home," he said, vague, his eyes never leaving me. "I live at the end of Route 15. I'd never seen him on this bus before, and his lie was as thin as the air between us. I stared out the window, the city blurring into streaks of gray and neon, praying he'd lose interest. But I knew he saw through my lies, knew I was heading home despite my denials. I should have stood, walked to the driver, screamed for help. But fear glued me to the seat, Fear of causing a scene, of being wrong, of being right. When my stop approached, I made a desperate plan. I let it pass, staying silent, then stood at the next one thinking I'd outsmart him. The bus doors hissed open and I stepped into the cold, my sneakers crunching on gravel. But his shadow followed. Mark stepped off too, his presence a weight, pressing against my back. "Where are you going?" I asked, my voice trembling. He smiled a predator's grin. "I'll walk you home." My heart hammered. "I'm not going home. I'm visiting a friend." He nodded, unfooled. "That's fine, I'll walk you." I shook my head, panic rising. "You don't need to." His smile vanished, replaced by a scowl. "Shut up and walk," he snapped, his voice a blade slicing through my resolve. The street was empty, the houses dark, their windows like blind eyes. We were alone, and the realization hit me like a fist. I couldn't go home, couldn't let him know where I lived. My legs trembled, rooted to the ground. Mark's hand landed on my shoulder, heavy, unyielding, his fingers digging into my skin. "We don't have much time," he said, his voice low, urgent. "Let's go." My mind screamed, but my body obeyed, nodding weakly. He smiled, satisfied. "If you're good, you don't need to be scared." I lied, my voice barely a whisper. "I'm not scared." He leaned closer, his breath hot against my cheek. "You plan on being good?" I nodded, choking out, "Yes, I'll be good," the words tasting like ash. We walked, his hand never leaving my shoulder, guiding me through streets that felt alien, dreamlike, as if the world had tilted into a nightmare. My heart pounded so loudly I was sure he could hear it, each beat a plea for escape. I wasn't religious, but I prayed, silent and desperate, for strength, for salvation, for anything to keep me from collapsing under the weight of his touch. The air grew colder, the stars above indifferent, and I wondered if this was how it ended, swallowed by a shadow named Mark. Then I saw him, an older man kneeling in his garden, his silhouette soft against the glow of a porch light. Hope surged, fragile but fierce. I don't remember deciding to run, only the blur of motion. My legs pumping, my voice tearing free in a scream for help. Mark's hand slipped away, his footsteps fading as he fled. The old man looked up, startled, then stood, shouting something I couldn't hear over the roar of my own pulse. He called the police, and they took my statement, their faces grim but helpless. "No evidence, no crime," they said. My parents, pale with fear, bought me a mobile phone that day. A luxury in the 90s, a lifeline I clutched like a talisman. I thought it was over, but Mark wasn't done with me. Weeks later, I boarded the bus to school, sticking to the stop closest to campus. As I stepped on, our eyes locked. There he was, grinning like a wolf who'd found his prey. My knees buckled, and I stumbled off, running to the school, tears streaming down my face. I called my mom, sobbing, and she arranged for a teacher to escort me to her car. The school was alerted, but Mark haunted its edges, appearing outside the gates sometimes daily, sometimes vanishing for weeks, a specter I couldn't escape. The police shrugged, powerless until he crossed a line that hadn't yet been drawn. I spent months waiting after school, my mom driving winding routes home to lose any shadow that might follow. Eventually, my parents transferred me to a new school, a fresh start untainted by his presence. He never found my neighborhood, never learned my real name. Years passed and I buried the fear, though it lingered like a bruise. Then, at 21, home from university, I saw him in a grocery store, his face unchanged, his eyes scanning shelves without a flicker of recognition. My breath caught, but he passed by, a stranger once more. I never learned his full name, his past, his intentions. Was he a lost soul, drawn to me by some twisted whim? Or was he a predator, his plan thwarted by chance? My mother believes the latter. My father refuses to speak of it, and I'm left with questions that echo in the dark. He's gone, but his shadow lingers, a reminder that some nightmares wear human faces. I tell this story now, in the cold of February, because summer feels like freedom, a season where shadows shrink under the sun. But in the quiet of winter, I still check over my shoulder, wondering if he's out there, waiting. Summer 2018 felt like a dream carved from sunlight and freedom. I was 13, teetering on the edge of 8th grade, and the Appalachian Mountains called me to a sleepaway camp I loved like a second home. The air smelled of pine and earth, heavy with the promise of adventure. Laughter echoed through the cabins, blending with the rustle of leaves underfoot. I didn't have to think about algebra or exams, just the open sky, the crackle of campfires, and friends who felt like family. Every morning, I'd wake to the golden haze of dawn spilling over the hills, my heart racing with the thrill of another day. This place was my sanctuary, a world where worries dissolved into the rhythm of nature. But even in paradise, shadows linger. I didn't know it then, but something was watching, waiting to unravel the safety I cherished. That summer, I'd learned that monsters don't always hide in the dark. They walk among us smiling. His name was Art, and he didn't belong. The new counselor arrived like a storm cloud drifting into our sunlit camp. In his 50s, with hair white as bone and skin creased like old leather, he stood out among the younger staff. His eyes, pale and unblinking, seemed to hold secrets I couldn't read. At first, I thought he was kind. He'd sweep our cabin's dusty floors, his voice soft as he asked about our day. "Feel safe," he seemed to say. But the girls whispered different stories. Huddled under blankets, they called him a shadow, a man who watched too closely. "He's not right," one said, her voice trembling. I laughed it off, but their fear planted a seed. One evening, as we played tennis under the fading light, I caught Art staring, his grin stretched too wide, teeth gleaming unnaturally like a predator baring its fangs. Was he watching me? My pulse quickened, the ball slipping from my grip. I told myself he was just lonely, but the air felt heavier, the camp's warmth fading into something colder, sharper. The bathroom was dim, the air thick with steam. I'd just showered, my skin still damp when I saw it. A shaving cream bottle on the sink, its cap crusted with age. I don't know why I reached for it. Maybe curiosity, maybe boredom. My fingers brushed the cold metal and the world shifted. Hands clamped my arms, tight as iron. I spun around, heart slamming against my ribs, and there was Art. His face was no longer kind. It was a mask of rage, eyes burning with something I couldn't name. "Don't touch what's mine," he growled, his voice low and venomous. "Do it again, and you're dead." My knees buckled, the room spinning. I nodded, choking on fear, and stumbled out, the towel slipping from my grasp. The cabin was silent, my bunkmates asleep, unaware of the monster I just faced. Was real? I sat on my bed trembling, the memory of his grip searing my skin. From that night I swore to stay away, but his shadow followed me, a stain I couldn't escape. The night was alive with stars, but dread clung to me like damp cloth. It was movie night, and Art was gone, his day off. Relief washed over me as we trudged back to the cabin, the forest whispering around us. I was safe. But then, a scream shattered the silence, high and desperate, followed by more. 10 voices, maybe more, crying out from the girls' cabins. My bunkmates froze, their faces pale in the moonlight. What was happening? Counselors barked orders. telling us to stay put as two ran toward the chaos. The air grew heavy, the night stretching into an eternity. Morning brought answers, but not peace. At breakfast, a girl's voice trembled as she spoke. "It was Art," she whispered. He'd been in their bathroom, pants down, grinning at the girls who'd found him. "Hey, pretty girls," he'd said, his voice a sick mockery. My stomach churned. The room fading as I pictured those girls running, terrified, into the woods. Counselors had pinned him down. Police had taken him away, but the camp felt tainted, its magic broken. Art was gone, but the camp never felt the same. I returned the next summer, chasing the joy I'd lost, but every shadow held his grin, every creak his threat. He was locked away, I hoped, in a place where monsters like him could never touch another child. They don't belong here. My heart ached for the girls who'd seen his true face, their innocence stolen in a moment. I carried their fear and mine like a weight I couldn't shed. Some nightmares don't end. Even now, years later, I wake, sometimes certain his eyes are watching, waiting for me to let my guard down. My husband and I, we were like driftwood in a storm, estranged from our families, clinging to the few connections that kept us grounded. And John, John was our anchor. He'd been my husband's shadow since they were kids, trading comic books under the glow of a street lamp, their laughter echoing through the cul-de-sac. John was the kind of guy who'd show up at your door with a six-pack and a grin, ready to lose himself in a board game or a debate about the latest tech. His eyes sparkled with a boyish charm, his voice soft but steady, like he could talk his way into anyone's heart. Everyone loved John, his quiet humor, his knack for fixing a busted computer, his way of making you feel like you were the only person in the room. But there was always something off, not in a way you could pin down, not at first. It was like a faint hum in the background, a frequency you couldn't quite tune into. John never dated. In all the years we knew him, while my husband and I fell in love, got married, built a life, John stayed frozen in time. No girlfriend, no fleeting romance, not even a crush he'd confess over beers. Look closer, I'd tell myself sometimes, watching him laugh too hard at a joke, his fingers fidgeting with a napkin. Was he lonely? Hiding something? We wondered, in private whispers, if maybe he was gay, too scared to tell us because of his strict family. But we never asked. It felt like crossing a line, like peering into a room he'd locked tight. So we let it be, content with our nerdy trio, John, my husband, and me, building computers, binge-watching sci-fi, pretending the world outside didn't exist. Then the world shifted and John slipped away like a ghost. It started with a phone call, his voice clipped, almost mechanical. He was moving 3 hours away, to a house his sister bought for her retirement. She wasn't ready to settle yet, so John would live there alone. Alone. The word hung in the air, heavy like damp earth. We thought it was a fresh start, a chance for him to finally grow up, find himself. But weeks turned to months, and John vanished into silence. No calls, no texts, no visits. His social media went dark, a graveyard of old posts about retro games and bad puns. My husband tried to shrug it off, but I saw the hurt in his eyes, the way he'd stare at his phone, waiting for a reply that never came. I couldn't let it go. Reach out, my heart urged. Don't let him fade. So I called, my voice trembling as I invited us to visit. John agreed, but there was no warmth in his tone, just a hollow echo. When we arrived, the house loomed like a forgotten relic, tucked in a neighborhood so quiet, it felt like the world had stopped breathing. The air was thick with the scent of pine and decay, the kind that clings to your skin. Inside, the house was a disaster. Clothes strewn across the floor, dishes piled in the sink, wires snaking from computers like veins. John's room was worse, a teenager's lair frozen in time. Posters peeling from the walls, a mattress sagging under the weight of his solitude. He said his sister visited every other weekend, claiming the main bedroom, and I caught a flicker of resentment in his eyes. Why doesn't he leave? I wondered, but the question died on my tongue. We went to dinner, the three of us forcing smiles, but John's answers were rehearsed, like lines from a script he'd memorized. Busy with the move, he mumbled, dodging my questions about his job, his life, his silence. Not ready to date, he said when I asked if he'd met someone. His words were reasonable, but they felt like lies, each one a brick in a wall. He was building between us. Listen to the silence, my instincts screamed. Something's wrong. That night, driving home through the endless dark, I couldn't shake the feeling that the John we knew was gone, replaced by a stranger wearing his face. What do you do when the person you love becomes a puzzle you can't solve? My husband's laughter faded. He'd stare out the window, lost in thoughts of a friendship unraveling. He missed him. I miss him, he'd said one night, his voice raw. So I called again, catching John off guard. He'd moved back to his mother's house, he said, to care for her failing health. His voice was strained, like he was reading from a cue card. I seized the chance, saying we'd visit soon, ignoring the unease twisting in my gut. But when we arrived, John was a shadow of himself, pale, his eyes darting like a trapped animal. His mother's house smelled of dust and regret, the kind of place where time stands still. We sat in the living room, the ticking of a clock slicing through our silence. John barely spoke, his hands clasped too tightly, his smile a brittle mask. I noticed his phone, open to a kids' show fan page, his comments glowing with an eerie enthusiasm. Why is a grown man obsessed with cartoons? I pushed the thought away, but it lingered, a splinter in my skin. Don't look too close, I told myself. But my eyes betrayed me, catching every detail. The way he avoided our gaze, the way his fingers twitched when I asked about his sister's house. I checked his social media later, something I hadn't done in years. His likes were a parade of Nickelodeon shows, his comments childlike as if written by someone else. Couldn't wait for the next episode, he'd posted, and my stomach churned. It wasn't just odd, it was unnatural, like finding a child's drawing in a man's handwriting. I didn't tell my husband. What would I say? I couldn't shake the feeling. What are you hiding, John? The question haunted me up, sleepless, nights whispering in every unanswered call, unanswered. Every month he dodged us, and then you'd see it for what it was. The truth was clawing at me. Then the mask shattered, and the monster was all that remained. It was a Tuesday evening, the kind where you feel the world is drowning. My husband called, "Come quick," his voice raw, cutting through the haze of the TV. I sat down, my breath catching as he pointed at the screen. John Doe, arrested in connection with a child trafficking ring. The anchor's voice was ice slicing through my heart. Look at him. John stood in shackles, his face hollow, eyes like black wells. The report said the police had cracked a dark website, exposing a network of horrors. John's mother's house had been raided, his sister's too, unearthing a digital graveyard of evidence. He'd been doing this for years, I realized. The thought a blade in my heart. Every smile, every laugh, every late-night coding session, it was a lie. How did we not see? My husband replayed the segment, his voice breaking. I watched it 20 times. It's him. I wanted to scream, to tear the world apart, but all I could do was sit, frozen, drowning in the truth. We cut him out of our lives, deleted his number, scrubbed his photos, erased his name. His sister disowned him, her social media wiped clean. His mother, already frail, lost her last son to a monster she'd never known. What did he do? The question haunted us, but the answer was too vile to face. John was sentenced to decades in a prison, locked away forever. But my husband changed. He'd flinch at shadows, refused to trust. I understood. You think you know someone, but you don't. I'd whisper to myself at night. John was a mirage, a shadow we'd loved, and the monster he hid was always there, watching us, waiting. And now he's gone, but the darkness he left behind lives in every doubt, every fear, every moment we'll never trust again. The wind howled like a beast outside, clawing at the glass walls of the gas station where I stood alone, a speck of light in a sea of darkness. Then he appeared, a man with no car, no sound, just a shadow stepping out of the snow, his eyes locking onto mine like a predator finding its mark. It was early January, the kind of cold that seeps into your bones and makes your breath a fragile cloud. I worked the late shift at a rundown gas station on the edge of town, a place where the neon sign flickered like a dying star. My shift wasn't the full overnight, just until 3 a.m. But in that frozen wasteland, time crawled. Snow dusted the pavement, whipped into frenzied swirls by a wind that stung like needles. The temperature hovered near 10 degrees, and even a moment outside felt like betrayal. Customers were rare, their headlights brief ghosts in the night, leaving me to the hum of the cooler and the flicker of the overhead lights. He came at midnight, a specter born from the storm. The door swung open and I jumped, my heart lurching. I hadn't heard a car, hadn't seen headlights sweep the lot. He stood just inside, a tall figure in a heavy coat, his face half hidden by a scarf. His boots left wet prints on the tile, but he didn't move further, just lingered by the glass door, staring out into the black. "Evening," I called, my voice too loud in the quiet. He turned, his eyes dull, almost lifeless, and nodded with a smile that didn't warm. "Just waiting for my ride," he said, his voice low, like gravel underfoot. I nodded back, unsure. "Stay as long as you need." "Where did you come from?" I wanted to ask, but the words stuck in my throat. Outside, the lot was empty. No cars, no tracks, just snow piling against the pumps. He must have walked, but from where? The nearest houses were miles away, and no one walked in this weather. I busied myself, restocking candy bars, wiping counters already clean, anything to ignore the weight of his presence. His stillness was unnatural, a statue carved from the cold, his gaze drifting between me and the darkness outside. An hour passed, the clock ticking toward 1 a.m., and he hadn't moved. "Need the phone?" I offered, my voice betraying a tremor. He shook his head, his eyes locking onto mine, unblinking. "He's watching you. Don't look away." My skin prickled, and I retreated behind the counter, pretending to check my phone, though the screen blurred under my shaking fingers. Feel the silence, heavy, suffocating, like a hand closing around your throat. Another half hour dragged by, the wind's wail the only sound. I glanced up and he was straighter now, his posture alert, his eyes boring into me. My pulse quickened, a drumbeat of dread. Before I could speak, a glare sliced through the night. Headlights, harsh and sudden, flooding the store with white. A car pulled up, its engine a low growl, parking inches from the door. No one got out. I looked at the man, his face unreadable, then back at the car, its tinted windows hiding whatever lurked inside. He pushed the door open, stepping into the snow, and approached the driver's side. The window rolled down, and they spoke. Their voices lost to the wind, but their glances darted toward me, sharp and deliberate. My gut screamed danger, a primal warning that drowned out reason. They're planning something. Move now. I circled the counter, my sneakers squeaking on the tile, and lunged for the door, twisting the lock with a trembling hand. The man spun, his eyes wide with rage, and yanked at the handle, the glass rattling. Under his force, the driver leapt out, a second shadow, his face obscured, pounding on the door with fists that shook the frame. Their anger was a living thing, clawing at the barrier between us. I stumbled back, my breath ragged, and grabbed the phone, dialing 911 with fingers that felt like ice. "Someone's trying to break in," I gasped, my voice barely mine, my eyes fixed on the men as they hammered the glass. See their faces, twisted, hungry, as if the night itself wants to swallow you. They saw the phone and something shifted. The driver barked something and they bolted for the car, tires screeching as they vanished into the storm. The line rang, and an operator's voice broke through, calm, distant, promising help. I sank to the floor, the phone pressed to my ear, the station's lights buzzing overhead like a heartbeat. Police came, their flashlights sweeping the lot. But the snow had buried any trace of the car, of the men, of whatever they'd planned. "Probably just drunks," an officer said, his tone dismissive, but his eyes lingered on the door, its frame slightly bent. I finished my shift in a daze, the station no longer a refuge but a cage, its glass walls too thin, too fragile. I never saw those men again, never learned what they wanted, money, violence, or something darker. But the memory of that night clings to me, a shadow that doesn't fade. I quit the job soon after, unable to face another midnight alone, unable to shake the feeling that they're still out there, waiting in the snow, their eyes fixed on me through the dark. Some nights I still hear their footsteps, soft as falling snow, just outside my door. Winter wove a spell of stillness over my home. Snow fell in delicate curtains, blanketing the world in a hush that felt eternal. I dragged myself back from work, the day's grind clinging to me like frost on glass. The kitchen glowed faintly, the scent of broth lingering, a fragile warmth against the cold. My footsteps echoed softly as I moved to the bedroom, the house settling around me like an old friend. "Rest now," it seemed to murmur, as I sank into bed, the sheets crisp and cool against my skin. The walls stood firm, a fortress against the biting night, promising safety. I closed my eyes, letting the quiet pull me under, certain no harm could pierce this sanctuary. But some dangers don't seek permission. Long ago, a neighbor's tale of a break-in had haunted me, a shadow slipping through their home, unseen. I'd laughed it off, but now in the heart of this silent night, that story stirred, a faint warning. Something waited beyond the veil of sleep, its presence a thread of dread woven into the snow's soft lullaby, ready to shatter my peace. A tremor in the night tore me from sleep. It was a sound, low and guttural, rising from the depths of the house, as if the very foundation groaned under an unseen weight. My heart jolted, racing in the dark, my breath shallow. Was it the roof sagging under snow? A pipe splitting in the cold? I lay still, ears straining, but the silence that followed was heavier, alive with menace. It pressed against me, a presence I couldn't shake. Go back to sleep, I told myself, but the sound lingered, a ghost in my mind. I rose, feet meeting the frigid floor, the chill biting through my skin. Keeping the lights off, I moved into the hallway, its shadows twisting like specters. The spare room loomed ahead, its door ajar, workout equipment standing like silent watchers. I scanned the ceiling, dry, unmarred. No wind stirred outside, only the faint dance of snowflakes against the window. Was it nothing? I parted the curtains, the glass icy under my touch, revealing a world too calm, too pristine. My reflection stared back, a stranger in the dim light, eyes wide with doubt. Something's wrong, my gut insisted. Years ago, I'd heard of a man waking to find his door, but no thief in sight, only questions. That story clawed at me now, urging me to move, to search. I pressed on, each step heavier, the air thick with a tension I couldn't name. Every corner held a threat, every shadow a figure I couldn't see. "You're alone," I whispered, but the house seemed to disagree. Its silence a warning, urging me to uncover what it hid. The next room held a truth that broke me. I stepped inside, the darkness thicker, a living thing that pressed against my skin. My foot landed on something wet, the cold seeping through, stealing my breath. I froze, heart hammering, as the dampness clung to me. Unnatural. Wrong. A leak, a forgotten spill. My eyes darted to the ceiling, but it stared back, dry, indifferent. My hand shook as I reached for the light switch, and when it flicked on, the room revealed its secret. My blood turned to ice. Wet patches scarred the carpet, a deliberate trail winding from the window to the door. Each mark a step taken by someone who didn't belong. They were here. My pulse roared, a drumbeat of terror. I followed the trail, each step a descent into dread, into the hallway where the marks marched on, relentless, toward my bedroom. They stood over me. At the doorway I faltered, the trail vanishing into the shadows where I'd slept, defenseless. The air grew heavy, suffocating, as if the house was confessing its violation. "See the truth," it urged. My mind spun, conjuring a figure, tall, silent, eyes glinting in the dark, watching me dream. Once, a friend had spoken of footprints in her yard, no culprit found, only fear. That fear was mine now, a weight crushing my chest. "Run," my soul screamed. I couldn't face the room, couldn't bear the thought of a stranger's breath mingling with mine, their gaze a blade in the night. A flicker of movement caught my eye, a shadow shifting beyond the window. Or was it my mind, unraveling in panic? Terror drove me from my sanctuary. I stumbled through the kitchen, keys slipping in my trembling hands, the cold floor a shock against my bare feet. My car surged to life, headlights carving through the snow as I sped away, the house fading, like a ghost in the mirror. "They're gone," I lied to myself. The words bitter, empty. Police arrived, their beams probing empty rooms, finding no trace of an intruder. But I saw the marks. Those wet stains seared my mind, proof of someone standing over me, their presence, a wound in my soul. I fled to a new home, new walls, but the fear followed, a shadow I couldn't outrun. At night, I lie awake, eyes locked on the dark, certain those spots will reappear trailing to my bed. They're still watching, my heart whispers. A childhood memory surfaces. My mother's voice, warning of strangers in the night, their motives, hidden. That warning haunts me now, a truth I can't escape. A nightmare that lingers, waiting for the moment I let my guard down, ready to claim me again. Night wraps you in its silence, but some silences scream louder than words. I'm 28. Living in a modest house where the suburbs fade into a wild, sprawling forest that seems to swallow the horizon. Most neighbors steer clear of it, spooked by its depth, but I've always been drawn to its solitude. At night, when the world quiets, I slip on my coat, clip on my headlamp, and tread the familiar trails. The forest is my refuge, its cool air sharp with pine, the ground soft. Under my boots, each step a pulse that syncs with my own. The darkness doesn't scare me. It frees me, stripping away the noise of life until I'm just a shadow among the trees. That evening, just past 8, the sky was clear, stars piercing the canopy like distant eyes. I set out, my headlamp carving a narrow path through the black, the beam dancing over roots and rocks. Feel the ground, I thought, grounding myself in the rhythm of my steps. The forest was still, almost too still, the usual chatter of nocturnal life absent. No owls, no rustling squirrels, just a heavy quiet that pressed against my ears. I pushed deeper, past my usual route, drawn by a restless urge to explore. Keep going, something urged, though I couldn't tell if it was my own voice or the forest's. Then a sound, a faint snap, like a twig breaking underfoot, too deliberate to be the wind. When you see a child where none should be, do you trust your eyes or your fear? I stopped, my headlamp sweeping the darkness, its light catching the glint of dew on leaves. There, just beyond the trail's edge, stood a small figure, no older than 9, maybe 10. A child, alone, their thin frame barely visible in the gloom. My stomach twisted. No one belongs here. The forest was a maze, treacherous even for me, let alone a kid in a threadbare jacket. I called out, my voice rough. "Hey, kid, you lost?" Silence. The child didn't flinch, their face hidden in shadow, my light too weak to reach their eyes. I stepped off the trail, my boots sinking into damp earth. "Come on, it's not safe out here." No response, but the child moved. A slow, eerie pivot, then a step back deeper into the woods. Not fleeing, not startled, just retreating like they wanted me to chase. "Turn back," my mind hissed. But concern overpowered caution. What if they're hurt? I followed, my headlamp flickering, the trees closing in like silent sentinels. The child moved with purpose, always just ahead, their small form weaving through the underbrush. Stay close, they seemed to beckon, though they never spoke. The trail was gone, the forest a labyrinth, and with each step I felt the weight of eyes on my back, unseen, unyielding. "You're not alone," my instincts warned, and the line between savior and prey began to dissolve. Some doors lead to places you can never unsee, and some truths claw at your soul. The forest thickened, branches clawing at my arms, my headlamp dimming, as if starved of power. The child stopped, their silhouette vanishing behind a structure, an old shed, its wood blackened by rot, standing like a wound in the wilderness. Its door hung open, a dark maw exhaling the stench of decay and something sour, like rusted metal. What is this? My heart raced, my hand hovering near the doorframe, fear locking my limbs. "Look inside," a voice urged, but every fiber of me screamed. To run, then it came, footsteps heavy, deliberate, crushing leaves and twigs, not the child's. These were adult, predatory, closing in from the shadows. They're coming. Panic surged, my pulse a drum in my ears. I killed my headlamp, plunging into darkness, the forest of void that swallowed my breath. The footsteps circled, slow, methodical, hunting. I ran, branches tearing at my skin, my lungs burning as I stumbled through the maze. The trail found me, a faint lifeline, and I didn't stop until my house was in sight, the door slamming behind me. I called 911, my voice trembling, spilling the story of the child, the shed, the footsteps. The police arrived, their lights probing. The night, but the shed was empty, the child gone, the footsteps erased. Did I imagine it? Doubt gnawed at me, cold as the forest air. Weeks later, the city demolished the shed, whispering of evidence tied to a kidnapping, details they wouldn't share. What was out there? The question festers, a splinter in my mind. That child, those footsteps, they're still in the woods, Waiting, watching, and every night I feel the forest's gaze daring me to return. The house was too quiet that night, a silence so deep it felt like a presence watching me from the shadows. I sat at my desk, alone in the glow of my computer screen, when a sound, like a heartbeat not my own, shattered the stillness, whispering of something wrong within my walls. Winter had settled over the town a few years back, wrapping my small house in a blanket of frost. I worked from home as a customer service rep, my days blurring into nights spent fielding calls and emails. That evening, my shift ran from 4 p.m. to midnight, a stretch of hours that felt both endless and fleeting. My office was a cramped room upstairs, its single window overlooking a yard buried in snow. I shut the door, sealing myself in with the hum of my computer and the soft glow of a desk lamp. The world outside reduced to a distant murmur. The first few hours passed smoothly. Calls came and went. My fingers danced over the keyboard, and I barely noticed the darkness pressing against the glass. Feel the house breathe around you, alive, waiting. Around 8 p.m., I took a break, heating leftover pasta in the kitchen. The microwaves drone a brief reprieve from the quiet. Back at my desk, the night slowed to a crawl. Tickets trickled in, leaving me staring at a blank screen, the cursor blinking like a pulse. Then it came, a sound, sharp and heavy, like a book falling from a shelf or a door nudged open. It echoed. From somewhere deep in the house, a jolt that snapped my head up. I pulled off my headphones, the silence rushing in, thick and oppressive. My heart quickened, but I told myself it was nothing. The house settling, the wind rattling a loose shutter. I opened the office door, peering into the hallway. The air was still, the shadows unmoving, the only sound my own shallow breath. It's nothing. Get back to work. I left the door ajar, a compromise with my unease, and sank back into my chair, the incident already fading. But some sounds linger, burrowing into your mind, refusing to be forgotten. Hours passed, the clock inching toward 11:30 p.m. My shift was nearly over, my eyes heavy with fatigue, when another sound stirred the silence. Softer this time, a faint shuffle, like footsteps on carpet, but it carried a weight that chilled me. My gut twisted, a primal warning that this was different. Wrong. I stood, my chair creaking, and stepped into the hallway, the cold floor biting my bare feet. The darkness seemed to pulse, alive with secrets. I glanced down the corridor and my breath caught. The door at the far end, the one leading to the basement, was wide open, a black maw swallowing the light. I'd checked it before my shift, locked it tight. How is this possible? See the door, open, inviting, daring you to step closer. My legs trembled as I stared, the hallway stretching impossibly long, the shadows pooling like ink. I forced myself to look the other way, toward the stairs, and that's when I saw it. A flicker of movement, a shadow shifting on the wall. My heart stopped. There, at the foot of the stairs, was a figure, its outline vague but unmistakable. A silhouette carved from darkness. It didn't move, didn't speak, just stood watching. My mind screamed, a flood of questions. Who are you? How did you get in? But fear glued my tongue. I backed into my office, my hands fumbling for the lock, the click of the bolt a fragile shield. I grabbed my phone, my fingers shaking so badly I nearly dropped it, and dialed 911. Someone's in my house, I whispered, my voice raw, my eyes fixed on the crack beneath the door, expecting a shadow to cross it any second. Feel low, the fear, cold as ice, wrapping around your heart. I crouched by the desk, the phone pressed to my ear, the operator's calm voice a distant lifeline. Minutes stretched into eternity, each second a battle against the urge to scream. I strained to hear footsteps, breathing, anything. But the house was silent, unnaturally so, as if holding its breath. The figure hadn't moved, hadn't climbed the stairs, but its presence lingered, a weight pressing against my chest. I imagined it standing there, patient, waiting for me to falter. They saw me, I realized, the thought a knife in my gut. The office door had been open earlier, my back to the hallway, headphones blotting out the world. They could have passed. I watched me, their eyes tracing my unaware form. The police arrived, their flashlight beams slicing through the dark. I unlocked the door, my hands still trembling, and followed them through the house. They found nothing. No footprints, no forced locks, no trace of an intruder. The basement door was still open, its hinges silent, mocking my fear. Maybe it was the wind, an officer suggested, but his eyes lingered on the door, uncertain. They left, their radios crackling, and I was alone again. The house no longer mine, but a stranger's domain. I checked every lock, every window, but the questions gnawed at me. How did they get in? Why were they here? The worst thought haunted me. They'd been close enough to touch, close enough to do anything, and I'd never known. Some nights, I still see that shadow, standing at the edge of my vision, waiting for me to look away. I moved out soon after, unable to sleep in a house that felt violated, its walls whispering of unseen guests. The incident left scars, a lingering dread that surfaces in quiet moments. I don't know who was in my home that night, or what they wanted, but the memory of that open door, that silent figure, is a wound that never heals. It's a reminder that safety is an illusion, that the dark holds secrets it refuses to share. Youth made us fearless, or so we thought. My friends and I were drawn to abandoned places, their crumbling walls whispering stories of forgotten lives. Each exploration felt like a dream, a rush of adrenaline as we uncovered relics of the past. Noah, with his quiet curiosity, and Tony, reckless and bold, were my partners in this secret thrill. Seek the unknown, our hearts urged, and we obeyed. One afternoon, school behind us, Noah spoke of a ranch beyond town, its decaying silhouette, hidden in the woods. It's perfect, he said, eyes alight. We plan to go after dusk, shadows our shield against prying eyes. Tony, ever the destroyer, grinned at the thought of shattering its silence. Was it too easy? A memory flickered, a tale of explorers vanishing in a derelict mill, their fate a mystery. I pushed it aside, but unease settled in my chest. As the sun dipped, painting the sky in blood and gold, we drove to the ranch, parking far to avoid suspicion. The air grew heavy, the forest's hum a warning I ignored. This is our adventure, I told myself, unaware that the ranch waited, its darkness ready to swallow us whole. The ranch loomed like a specter in the twilight. We approached its rusted fence, 7 feet of iron encircling secrets. Tony's wire, cutters glinted, slicing through metal, the forest's shadows cloaking us as we slipped inside. The house stood 70 yards off, its silhouette jagged, windows boarded like sealed eyes. Beside it, an ancient barn sagged, its wood blackened, by centuries exhaling decay. Enter, the place seemed to whisper. Noah pointed to a low window, unboarded, a portal to the unknown. Tony smashed it with a stone, the sound swallowed by the night, and crawled into the basement. My heart raced as I followed, Noah hesitating. Behind, the air choked us. A stench hit thick with rot like meat left to spoil, stinging my throat. Moonlight barely pierced the gloom, casting warped shadows on damp walls. We found a staircase to the living room, each step heavy, the wood protesting underfoot. Was someone watching? A friend once spoke of a house where footsteps followed. No source found. That story gripped me now, my pulse quickening. The house felt alive, its darkness a pulse that matched my fear, urging us deeper into its maw, where dreams blurred into terror. The living room was a graveyard of time. We moved through its shadows, the boarded windows trapping us in darkness. Old furniture lay broken, a sofa on stilts dominating the space, its fabric torn like flesh. Black and white photos lined the walls, their subjects staring blankly, eyes hollow, as if judging our intrusion. Stay still, my mind warned. I traced. Photo's edge, chilled by its lifelessness. While Noah wandered, his steps muffled. Suddenly glass shattered. Noah's gasp echoing as a vase hit the floor. We froze. The silence that followed was a predator coiling around us. Then, footsteps thudded above, heavy, deliberate, shaking the ceiling. Someone's here. My heart seized, fear clawing my throat. I grabbed Noah and Tony, shoving them under the sofa, its dust choking me. Only two could fit. Tony darted to a cupboard, squeezing inside. "Hide now," my instincts screamed. The footsteps descended, each one a hammer on my nerves. Noah's breath rasped beside me, too loud. I pressed my hand over his mouth, my own pulse. Deafening? They're coming. A childhood tale surfaced, kids trapped in a haunted barn, hearing steps that never explained. That terror was ours now, the house a trap, its heartbeat syncing with our dread. The silence shattered with Noah's scream. The footsteps stopped by the sofa, and a hand reached beneath, yanking Noah out. I scrambled up, heart exploding, and saw him. A man bearded and wild, his eyes glinting in the dim light, dragging Noah toward the stairs. "Save him," my mind roared. Tony burst from the cupboard, his face pale. I grabbed a shard of broken glass, its edge biting my palm, and charged. Upstairs after them. The man's arm loomed. I stabbed, blood welling as he howled, releasing Noah. "Run now!" We stumbled downstairs to the basement, the air thick with rot. The window was high, slick with moisture. We hoisted Noah up, then Tony, my arms burning. Footsteps thundered behind me, water splashing as the man raced across the basement. "He's coming!" I leapt, Tony's hand catching mine, but a grip seized my ankle, cold and iron. Terror surged. I kicked, connecting with flesh, and broke free, scrambling out. We sprinted across the ranch, thorns tearing at us to the fence's hole. Don't look back. But I did, and in the upstairs window his silhouette watched. A predator denied. We fled to the car, tires screaming as we escaped, the ranch's shadow clinging to us, a nightmare etched in our bones. 6 years have passed, but the ranch never left me. We never returned, never spoke of it beyond hushed whispers. Noah's eyes still carry that night's terror, Tony's bravado shattered forever. Why was he there? The question haunts me, a riddle without answer. Was he a drifter guarding his lair, or something darker, drawn to the ranch's decay? What did he want? A friend once warned of places like that, where the lost linger, their motives twisted by time. That warning echoes now, a truth I can't escape. I dream of the house, its photos watching, the man's gaze piercing the dark. Some places trap you. Even now I wake, certain his footsteps follow, a shadow waiting to pull me back into the ranch's heart, where nightmares live forever. You think you're safe in a crowded room, but some gazes cut deeper than knives. Back in 2013, my husband and I were newly stationed at a military base, our lives a whirlwind of duty and adjustment. I found solace in the base gym, its clanging, weights and rhythmic treadmills a refuge from the chaos. I was in my early 20s, fit, focused, pouring my energy into workouts to steady my nerves. But soon I noticed him. A man tall, athletic, with a balding head and a nerdy air, always there when I was. His eyes, sharp, unblinking, followed me across the room, his smile a thin, unsettling curve. Ignore it, I told myself, brushing off the prickle on my skin. He'd linger by the machines, never too close, but close enough to make my pulse quicken. He approached me a few times, his voice soft, probing. Small talk about reps or routines. "Your husband's military, right?" he'd ask. And I'd nod, mentioning my husband's role to draw a line. "Stay away," I hoped he'd hear in my tone. But he didn't. His gaze grew bolder, locking onto me as I lifted weights, its weight heavier than any barbell. I never asked his name, and he never offered it. Why would I need to know, I thought, convincing myself he was just awkward, harmless. Yet, deep down, a voice whispered, "Watch him." The gym, once my sanctuary, began to feel like a stage. And I was the unwilling star of his silent obsession. When a stranger steps into your home, the walls you built start to crumble. 8 years passed, and that man's presence in the gym never faded. By 2021, my husband left the military, and we settled in a nearby town, renting a cozy house to start our civilian life. I turned our living room into a private gym, a haven, where I trained clients free from the base's noise. I advertised through an online platform, thrilled as bookings rolled in. Then, one day, an email pinged. A new client, 6 sessions prepaid. Perfect, I thought, until the doorbell rang. And there he was. Him. The same man standing on my porch, his smile sharper now, eyes glinting with something I couldn't name. I had no choice but to train him. The platform's rules bound me. Stay. Professional, I told myself, leading him through an arm workout. But he didn't need me. His form was flawless, his strength evident. Why is he here? His compliments felt like traps. "You look nice today," he said, and my forced smile hid a shiver. The next session was worse. Demonstrating a lat pull-down, I felt his gaze crawl over me, heavy, invasive. Then as I rose, he moved behind me, his hand brushing my chest, a deliberate graze. "No." I jumped back, my voice shaking. "That's inappropriate. Session's over." That night I texted him, canceling his contract, citing his behavior. His reply was curt. "I understand." But his eyes, that lingering stare, told me this wasn't the end. "He's not done," my fear whispered. And the safety of my home began to feel like an illusion. Some threats don't knock. They lurk, waiting for the moment you let your guard down. 3 nights later, I was awake at 3 a.m., curled up with a book in the dim glow of a lamp. My husband was at his night shift, the house quiet except for the hum of the fridge. Then a sound, faint, like a foot scuffing gravel. My heart stopped. Not again. I froze, straining to hear, my breath shallow. Another sound, closer, near the shed. I crept to the window, peering through the blinds, and caught a glimpse. A man's foot vanishing around the corner, the shed door swinging open. "He's here." Panic surged, my hands trembling as I grabbed a kitchen knife and dialed 911, whispering that someone was breaking in. The police came, their flashlights sweeping the yard, but found no one. The shed was ransacked, my husband's tools gone. I filed a report, begging them to check the HOA's cameras, only to learn they were fakes. Decoys. Days later at Walmart, I saw him, leaving as I entered, his glare slicing through me like a blade. It's him, I thought, my stomach churning. Was it revenge for canceling his sessions? I couldn't prove it, but the coincidence gnawed at me. My husband took me to buy a gun. A German Shepherd joined our home, and we installed a security system. Now in 2025, I'm still on edge. My nights haunted by the memory of his eyes, watching, waiting. Every shadow outside my window feels like him, and I wonder if I'll ever feel safe again. He was there before I knew his name, a shadow in a gray hoodie, his eyes like knives carving my every move. 18 months ago, in a diner where I poured coffee and forced smiles, he began to haunt me, turning my world into a maze of fear where every corner hid his gaze. It started in a small town, where life moved slow and faces blurred into routine. I was a waitress, my days spent weaving between tables, my nights alone in a rented house with creaking floors. The diner was a fluorescent-lit refuge, its booths worn but familiar, where I served truckers and locals with a smile that hid my exhaustion. He came one evening, a tall, gaunt figure slipping into the corner booth, his greasy black hair falling over eyes that avoided mine. His gray hoodie, stained at the cuffs, seemed to carry the weight of days unwashed. He ordered black coffee, nothing else, and sat for hours, his fingers tracing the cup's rim, his gaze fixed on me, not with warmth, but with a cold, calculating hunger. Feel his eyes, heavy, relentless, peeling away your layers. I brushed it off, telling myself he was just lonely, awkward, harmless. But when I locked up that night, his silhouette lingered outside, pressed against the glass, watching. My heart stuttered, but I convinced myself it was nothing, a trick of the dark. See the note, its words a violation, a secret no one should know. A week later I found it. A scrap of notebook paper slid under my front door, the handwriting childish, uneven. "You look pretty in blue today," it read. My uniform was red, always red. But that morning, hidden beneath, I'd worn blue underwear. My stomach churned, bile rising in my throat. I lived alone, my windows curtained, my life private. No one could have known. I checked the locks, the windows, my fingers trembling as I traced their edges, finding no sign of tampering. I crumpled the note, tossing it into the trash, whispering to myself that it was a prank. Kids playing cruel games. But sleep eluded me, and I slipped a kitchen knife under my pillow. Its cold steel a fragile comfort against the unknown. The weeks that followed were a descent into dread. He was everywhere, or so it seemed, his shadow flitting across the street. As I walked home, his figure under a street lamp's glow, his face half seen in the grocery store, peering through aisles before vanishing. He's closer than you think. More notes appeared, each one a dagger to my sanity. "I like your hair. Down," one said, though I'd worn it up. "Close your curtains," another warned, my heart sinking as I realized my bedroom window had been open. The words, scrawled in that same childish hand, burrowed into my mind, each one a reminder that I was watched, hunted. I stopped throwing them away, urged by a friend to keep them in a shoebox, a grim collection of my fear. Footsteps trailed, me at night fading when I turned. My trash can was toppled, its contents strewn across the lawn. Once I found a dead bird on my porch, its neck twisted, feathers scattered like a warning. Sleep became a stranger, my night spent clutching the knife. The house's silence a canvas for every imagined sound. Feel the weight of his presence, growing, suffocating, until it consumes you. I couldn't bear it alone. I turned to Tom, my neighbor across the street, a man in his 50s with a kind face and a laugh that warmed the air. One afternoon, trembling, I knocked on his door and poured out my terror. The notes, the shadows, the bird, the footsteps. His brow furrowed, his hand steady on my shoulder. "You're not alone," he said, his voice firm. "Call me day or night, and I'll come running." His promise was a lifeline, the first flicker of hope in weeks. I nodded, tears stinging my eyes, and for a moment, I believed I could survive this. But the notes grew darker, their threats explicit. "I'll cut your pretty throat," one promised. "No one can save you." I stopped leaving the house unless forced, my world shrinking to locked doors and drawn curtains, my life a prison of my own making. Hear the footsteps now, real, deliberate, coming for you. One night, as I brewed tea in the kitchen, my hands shaking, I saw him. A tall, thin figure moving up my driveway, his pace slow, brazen, as if he wanted me to see. My heart stopped, the mug slipping from my fingers, shattering on the floor. This was it, the moment I dreaded. I grabbed the phone, dialing 911, my voice a desperate whisper. "Someone's breaking in," I pleaded, begging them to hurry. I called Tom, the phone ringing endlessly, unanswered, each unanswered tone a nail in my coffin. Panic clawed at my chest. I was alone, utterly alone. My father's old handgun, kept loaded on my nightstand, felt heavy in my trembling hands. I crept to the top of the stairs, crouching in the dark, the gun trained on the front door. My breath shallow, my pulse a deafening drum. Minutes stretched, each one an eternity, my palms slick with sweat. Then the door exploded inward, the frame splintering under a violent kick. A shadow stepped inside, swift and silent. "Don't hesitate. Save yourself," I screamed, the sound raw, and fired. 3 shots, sharp and deafening, echoing in my skull. The figure grunted, collapsing in a heap. I dropped the gun, my body shaking, and stumbled down the stairs, my mind a fog of relief and terror. Blood pooled on the hardwood, dark and spreading, and I flipped on the light, expecting to see my tormentor, see the truth, and let it break you. It wasn't him. It was Tom, his kind face pale, his chest torn open, a flashlight clutched in his lifeless hand. I fell to my knees, sobbing, my hands pressing against his wounds, blood seeping through my fingers. "I'm sorry," I cried over and over, but he was gone, his eyes empty, his warmth fading. The police arrived, their voices distant as they pulled me away, my hands stained with Tom's blood. I told them everything. The stalker, the notes, the threats, showing them the shoebox, its contents a testament to my fear. But their faces were cold, their eyes skeptical. At 3 a.m., they told me Tom had died on the operating table, and I sat in the interrogation room, numb, my tears spent. They searched my house, my yard, the neighborhood, but found no trace of the stalker. The diner's cameras showed nothing. My co-workers recalled no one matching his description. The notes, they said, were in my handwriting. The footprints matched. My boots. The bird? A cruel act I could have done myself. "There's no one else," they insisted, their words a cage closing around me. They sent me to a psychiatrist, a stern woman with sharp eyes, her pen scratching as I spoke. I told her the stalker was real, that I'd seen him, felt him, but she probed my life, my job, my loneliness, implying I'd broken under stress, invented a phantom to justify my fear. After days of tests, they labeled me delusional, unfit for trial, and locked me in a psych ward. Its white walls and padded doors a mockery of safety. I'm not crazy. He was real. His gray hoodie a stain on my memory, his notes a truth no one believes. I didn't mean to kill Tom. I thought I was saving myself. Thought the shadow at my door was the end. Now Tom is dead, and I'm trapped, my screams unheard. My truth buried in a mind they say is broken. Some nights I still see him standing in the corner watching, waiting for me to prove he exists. Summer 1988 painted Mexico as a land of wonder. I was 8. a Mexican-American boy, wide-eyed in the countryside's embrace. The fields stretched endless under a blazing sun, but my father's warnings lingered like a spell. "Stay away from fields and graveyards at night," he'd say, his voice heavy. "Things move in the dark. Believe in magic," his words urged, and I did, fearing spirits woven into the land's pulse. The village was alive with tales, ghosts, witches, shadows that stole breath. I'd lie awake, imagining eyes in the night, my heart racing. "Stay safe," I told myself, clinging to the house's warmth. That summer, our home had no electricity, only oil lamps I couldn't light. The porch became my refuge, moonlight my only guide. A neighbor once spoke of a child lost in the fields, never found. Her name whispered in fear. That story clung to me, a shadow in my dreams. As I sat under the stars, the air thick with heat, I felt the world shift, a whisper of danger curling through the night, ready to break the spell of childhood. The night turned traitor with a sound. Sat on the porch, moonlight casting silver over the wooden boards, the hum of insects a restless chorus. Then, footsteps broke the silence, heavy, close, a rhythm of many feet moving as one. "Who's there?" My heart leapt, eyes scanning the foe. Dark, but no voices came, only the relentless shuffle like a mob rising from the earth. "Run!" my instinct screamed. I stumbled to my feet, panic surging, my breath ragged. The house loomed behind me, a fragile haven. I bolted inside, tripping over the threshold, my mind flashing to horror films where every fall meant doom. Locked the door. My hands fumbled, securing the bolt, the wood cold under my fingers. I grabbed a fireplace poker, its weight grounding me, and fled to my room. "You're safe now," I lied, but the air felt alive, charged with threat. The darkness pressed close, the insects hummed louder as if chanting a warning. A village elder once told of spirits walking at midnight, their steps echoing without form. That tale gripped me now, my pulse a drumbeat. The house was silent, but the footsteps' echo lingered, a promise of something stalking just beyond the walls, waiting to claim me. My room was a fragile shield, but the window betrayed me. Moonlight poured in, bathing the space in a ghostly glow, my eyes adjusting to the shadows. I clutched the poker, its iron heavy, staring at the door, expecting it to burst open. "Stay calm," I whispered, my breath uneven. The silence was a lie, lulling me until I moved toward the bed, exhaustion tugging at me. Then a glance at the window stopped my heart. A woman stood there. Her headscarf framed a face pale as bone, eyes locked on mine, unblinking. She bared her teeth, not a smile but a snarl, chilling my blood. She sees me. A bearded man joined her, his whisper to her like a curse. He turned, saw me, and his teeth gleamed, a mirror of her menace. "What are they?" My body froze, fear rooting me. The man pressed the glass, testing it, his fingers leaving smears. "They're coming in." My mind raced to a story of La Llorona, her wail luring children to doom. Was this her? I couldn't scream, the house asleep, unaware. The glass strained. Under his touch, and panic surged. "Fight back," my soul urged. I gripped the poker, swung at the window, glass exploding outward. The night swallowing the sound. They fled, their steps fading, leaving me trembling, the wind howling through the broken pane. The house erupted into chaos. Light flooded my room as my father and uncle stormed in, their faces taut with alarm. "What did you do?" my father demanded, his gaze on the shattered window. "They were outside," I stammered, watching me. His eyes widened, a flicker of fear breaking his anger. He grabbed my arm, pulling me to the kitchen, barking at my uncle to rouse the others. "Stay together," his urgency commanded. 6 of us gathered, the air thick with tension, while my father, uncle, and cousins armed themselves. Rifles, revolvers, shovels glinting in the lamplight. They vanished into the night, leaving us in a huddle of whispers. My aunt's voice rose, teasing about La Llorona and her mate, her smirk chilling me. "Stop it," my mother snapped, but the seed was planted, my cousin trembling beside me. Were they spirits? A tale of bandits in the hills told by my grandfather surfaced. Killers who left no trace. The men returned, finding nothing. Their faces grim. "They're gone," my father said, but the night felt alive watching. We stayed awake. Coffee bitter on my tongue. The kitchen a fortress against the unknown. Its shadows whispering of threat still lurking beyond our walls. Dawn broke, but the night's terror lingered. We found blood outside my window. A scarlet stain my uncle missed in the dark. My mother's gasp echoed my fear, the house no longer safe. They were real. We stayed a few nights. My father and cousins standing guard, their eyes scanning the hills. A newspaper arrived, its words chilling. Bands of desperate wanderers roamed, killing for scraps, leaving bodies in barns. That's who they were, my father said, his voice hollow. Years later, I asked what he'd told my uncle that night. Gitanos, he said, the word a blade. I learned it meant gypsies, outcasts driven to violence. They're still out there. A cousin's tale of a village raised by such bands haunted me, their motives a mystery. The porch, the window, their teeth. They invade my dreams, the moonlight always too bright, the footsteps always too close. Some fears never fade. Even now I wake, certain their eyes peer through my window, waiting for the night I forget to lock the door, ready to drag me into the dark. Kindness can open your door to someone you thought you knew, but some doors should stay locked. For 18 years, I've worked in mental health care in Sweden, navigating the fragile edges of human minds. At 36, I'm no stranger to chaos, but I've always found balance in my small circle of friends from the group home where I worked for nearly a decade. Among them was Em, a soft-spoken woman who joined us later, her shy smile masking a history of schizophrenia. She's stable, she assured us, her medication keeping the shadows at bay. We bonded over late-night chats, her laughter a quiet melody against the hum of our shared work. She was one of us, a sister in our makeshift family, and I trusted her. Last summer, Em's world unraveled. She was evicted from her apartment after what she called a misunderstanding, entering a neighbor's place by mistake in the middle of the night. "The doors all look the same," she said, her voice trembling. I wanted to believe her, but a flicker of doubt stirred. "Is that all?" I pressed, and she insisted it was. In Sweden, an eviction is a death sentence for renters, and Em had nowhere to go. My heart ached for her, so I opened my tiny one-bedroom apartment home to me and my 2 cats. "You can stay on the couch," I offered, hanging a curtain for privacy. "She's your friend," I told myself, ignoring the unease that lingered, like a faint chill. But kindness, I'd soon learn, can invite darkness you never saw coming. When your home becomes a cage, every sound feels like a warning. Em settled into my living room, her belongings a chaotic sprawl across the couch. At first, I tried to adjust, but my life began to fray. I suffer from severe insomnia, my sleep fragile even with medication, worsened by epilepsy that flares without rest. "Please keep it quiet at night," I begged Em, explaining my condition. She nodded, but the first night she was up at dawn brewing coffee just outside my door, the scent sharp and jarring. "Why so early?" I asked, masking my frustration. "Couldn't sleep," she mumbled, promising to wait next time. She didn't. Night after night, her footsteps, the clink of mugs, the creak of the floorboards stole my rest, each sound a needle in my nerves. Worse, M consumed my space. She ate my food, leaving empty wrappers where my meals should have been. Her long black hair clung to every surface, sink, floor, bathtub, like an invasive vine. Fingernail clippings littered the bathroom. Urine stains marked the toilet seat. "Clean up," I hinted, placing a broom nearby, but nothing changed. I confronted her gently and she apologized, her eyes vacant, promises hollow. She's struggling, I told myself, but my patience wore thin. Then, my grandmother's saucepan, a cherished heirloom, was scorched beyond repair, left on the stove like a discarded memory. "How could she?" I cried, but M just shrugged, her indifference a blade. When my sleeping pills vanished, 20 of them gone from my nightstand, she denied it, her lie stark against the truth. "You're not safe," my fear whispered, and the walls of my home closed in. Some truths burn brighter than fire, and some fears never let you go. A friend's message shattered my denial. He revealed M's eviction wasn't a mistake. She'd broken into a neighbor's home, standing over their baby with a knife in a psychotic haze. She lied. The truth clawed at me, and I knew M had to leave. I sat her down, my voice steady despite my racing heart, offering a hostile "I'll pay." But her silence was deafening, her eyes fixed on some unseen void. That night she brewed coffee at 2 a.m., ignoring my pleas. She's unraveling, I realized, locking the coffee maker in my car. But she found a saucepan, heating dry grounds until the kitchen reeked of ash. One night, my boyfriend stirred beside me, whispering, "Look." There was M standing in my doorway, her hair a dark curtain, eyes black and unseeing. "What does she want?" I called out, but she vanished, a knife clattering to the floor. "She's dangerous." I hid every blade, my hands shaking. The next day, with a friend's support, I told M to leave, packing her things while she was at a doctor's appointment. She returned wordless, handing back my keys before disappearing. Relief was brief. M later moved into a new place only to set it ablaze, her delusions commanding destruction. "Everything must burn," she'd ranted, now confined to a mental facility, perhaps the one where I once worked. Her eyes, those hollow voids, haunt me, a reminder of the darkness I let. And what if she'd stayed? The question lingers, a shadow in my home, forever watching. The air in the shop felt wrong, charged with a tension I couldn't name, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. I was 18, small and timid, stepping into a store with my friend, when a woman's voice, sharp as a blade, cut through the hum of chatter, her finger jabbing my chest like an accusation from a nightmare. It was November 2017, a crisp autumn day in a bustling town where I was just another college freshman, navigating life between lectures and fleeting moments of freedom. At 4:10, I was used to feeling small, my anxiety flaring at the slightest hint of disapproval. A glance, a frown, anything that suggested I'd crossed an invisible line. My best friend, barely taller at 5'1", shared my quiet nature, our non-confrontational souls drawn together like moths to a dim flame. We'd carved out this day to shop, a rare ritual to reconnect amidst the chaos of college, wandering through malls with laughter and light bags. Our destination, as always, was Ann Summers, a lingerie store where we hunted for bras that fit our frames, lured by sales that promised relief for our wallets. The store was a familiar haven, its racks of lace and satin a comfort in their predictability. Hear her voice, commanding, unyielding, pulling you into her world. We stepped into Ann Summers, the bell above the door chiming softly, the air warm with the scent of perfume and fabric softener. I'd barely crossed the threshold, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor when she appeared. A woman, her presence sudden and jarring, like a shadow cast by a storm cloud. Her accent, thick and Slavic, sliced through the chatter. "Spit. The gum out," she demanded, her finger thrusting into my chest hard enough to make me stumble. My heart lurched, my cheeks flushing with embarrassment. Assuming she was an employee enforcing some rule, I stammered, "I'm really sorry," and fled outside, spitting my gum into a trash can, my hands trembling as I tossed the wrapper. The cold air bit my face, a stark contrast to the heat of my shame. Why did I feel so guilty? Back inside, the truth hit me like a second blow. She wasn't staff, just a customer, her dark coat and wild hair out of place among the store's soft pinks and creams. She browsed near the door, her movements erratic, her eyes darting. No employee would act so brazenly, not if they valued their job. My mistake gnawed at me, but I kept my head down, avoiding her gaze as I rejoined my friend. We moved through the aisles, our usual chatter subdued, my nerves taut as a wire. The store was small, barely 15 by 18 feet, its cramped space forcing us to weave around racks, our shoulders brushing satin and lace. I tried to focus on the bras, their price tags a distraction, but her presence loomed, a weight I couldn't shake. Stay away from her. Don't look. Feel the space shrink, the walls closing in, her eyes waiting for you to falter. We drifted toward the sales stand by the door where she'd first confronted me. I kept my distance, my fingers tracing price tags, my eyes scanning for discounts. A sign caught my attention, and I leaned slightly, craning my neck to read it. That's when I saw her pushchair. Not a stroller for a child, but a battered frame stuffed with plastic carrier bags, each one double-bagged, knotted tight, as if guarding something precious or forbidden. I didn't stare, didn't want to provoke, but I was close. Maybe 3 feet away, no more. Too close, it seemed. She was on the other side of the chair, but in an instant she lunged around it, her body a blur of motion. Before I could react, her hand struck my face, a force that was half slap, half punch, sending stars across my vision. Pain bloomed, sharp and hot, my cheek throbbing. "Watch the personal space," she hissed, her breath hot against my ear, her voice a venomous whisper. I froze, shock rooting me to the spot. She hit me. My mind reeled, and in my daze I choked out, "I'm sorry." The words spilling out reflexively, a betrayal of my own pain. I hated myself for it, for apologizing to her, but fear silenced any fight in me. I didn't know what I'd done, didn't understand her rage, but I knew I couldn't risk more. Stumbling back, I grabbed my friend's hand, pulling her toward the back of the store where a low wall hid the adult toys from public view. My hand shook, my breath ragged as I whispered, "She just hit me." We stood there, clutching each other, the store's hum a distant roar in my ears. My friend, positioned to see the shop, watched for her. "She's gone," she said after a minute, and I exhaled, my body sagging, though the fear didn't leave. "See?" Her shadow lingering just out of sight, ready to strike again. "Can we stay here?" I asked, my voice small, my eyes darting to the open storefront. She could be outside, waiting, her pushchair a beacon in the crowd. My friend nodded and we lingered, pretending to browse, our movements mechanical, our hearts racing. 5 minutes later, we edged toward the counter, our purchases clutched like shields. The cashier, a girl no older than us, glanced outside, then back at us, her face pale. That woman was here for half an hour. she said, her voice low. I didn't know what to do. I explained. The gum, the slap. My voice trembling. Her eyes widened. She hit you? I'm so sorry. I would have called security if I'd known. I forced a smile, shrugging. It's fine. It wasn't, but her guilt wasn't mine to carry. She looked as lost as I felt, her youth a mirror of my own vulnerability. We left the store, my eyes scanning the street. Every figure a potential threat. Can we go home? I asked, my voice breaking. We hadn't finished shopping, but the thought of her waiting, her eyes tracking me, was unbearable. My friend agreed and we boarded a bus, its hum a fragile barrier against the world. At home, my parents urged me to call the police, their faces tight with worry. I dialed the non-emergency line, recounting the incident, my words halting. The officer's response was cold, dismissive. What do you expect us to do? He said, suggesting I retrieve security footage from Ann Summers, footage I wasn't sure existed. Defeated, I hung up, the weight of their indifference crushing. Feel the fear linger, a stain on your soul, her face etched in your dreams. 3 years have passed, but the memory clings, a shadow that darkens quiet moments. I've pieced together theories. Maybe she was homeless, her bags holding all she owned, her protectiveness a desperate act. Maybe drugs fueled her rage, her eyes wild with something I couldn't see. Or maybe it was both, a collision of desperation and delusion. I'll never know. The police did nothing. The store moved on, but I carry her mark. A bruise long faded, a fear that never will. Some days I still feel her finger on my chest, her hiss in my ear, a stranger's strike that changed me forever. High school led me to Chuck E. Cheese, my first job and a descent into dread. The building squatted on the edge of town, its neon sign flickering, promising fun but delivering decay. Inside, the air was thick with pizza grease and the tang of neglect. Step into joy, the place seemed to say. But the cracked tiles and dim lights told another story. As a janitor, I battled endless spills, my mop a shield against chaos. The arcade machines blinked erratically, their buttons sticky, while the play areas sagged, fabric torn. The Chuck E. Cheese animatronic, the star of the show, often froze mid-song, its eyes lifeless, yet piercing. Keep working, my manager's indifference urged, ignoring my pleas to fix anything. The place survived only because no rival existed, a monopoly of faded dreams. Was it always this eerie? A coworker once whispered of a night shift where the lights flickered without cause, machines humming alone. I laughed, but the story stuck, a seed of unease. Each shift I felt watched, the din of children masking a deeper silence, as if the store held its breath, waiting to reveal its true face. Night cloaked Chuck E. Cheese in an unnatural hush. After closing, I swept the arcade, the machine's faint hum my only company. A claw machine caught my eye, its prize, a plush lamb, dangling, trapped midair. Why didn't anyone claim it? I unlocked the case, the metal cold, and pried the claw open, freeing the toy. It's just a glitch, I thought, but the claw snapped shut, seizing my hand. Pain flared, my pulse racing as I yanked free, skin stinging. What just happened? My eyes darted around, the arcade empty, yet I felt exposed. Then I saw it, the Chuck E. Cheese animatronic on stage, its head tilted, eyes fixed on me. It's off, I reasoned, but the gaze felt alive, unblinking. Move on, my mind urged, but my legs trembled. A friend's tale of a vending machine trapping her arm, unexplained, echoed in my head. I shook it off, labeled the machine out of order, and Drew the stage curtains, the fabric heavy as if sealing a tomb. The arcade's lights flickered, shadows dancing, and I hurried back to work. The animatronic stare burned into my memory, a warning I couldn't ignore, whispering of something awake in the dark. The next day, the stage became a theater of terror. I scrubbed a spill near the performance area, kids cheering as Chuck E. Cheese danced, its mechanical limbs jerking to music. Ignore last night, I told myself, but unease gnawed. Then, the robot faltered, its movements wild, joints twisting, unnaturally, music stuttering, it's breaking. Children gasped, parents murmured, and my heart sank as the animatronic's head snapped toward me, eyes gleaming, unyielding. It seized me. The system crashed, freezing it in a grotesque pose, still staring. Just a glitch, I lied, but my skin crawled. Help them, duty called, and I joined coworkers to clear the stage, avoiding the robot's gaze. I reported the claw incident to my manager, his dismissal a slap. Fix it later, he said. But the store felt alive, its pulse erratic. A tale from school surfaced, a kid swearing the animatronic winked at him, laughed off but chilling now. Was it watching? The lights dimmed, the crowd's noise fading, as if the store whispered its secrets, urging me to see the truth hidden in its rusted heart. A truth that wasn't human. Alone in the dark, Chuck E. Cheese became a nightmare. After closing, I mopped the stage, the animatronic looming, its twisted pose a silent threat. Finish quickly, my fear urged, the air heavy, lights buzzing faintly. Then, laughter echoed, low and mocking, surrounding me. "Who's there?" I called, voice shaking, but the store was empty, the sound growing closer, pressing against my skull. "Get out," I demanded, scanning the shadows, my mop trembling. The laughter intensified, a chorus from nowhere, until a snap jolted me. It moved. I spun, and Chuck E. Cheese lunged, its 200-pound frame crashing into me, slamming me to the floor. "It's alive." Pain exploded, my wrist screaming as I fought, pinned under metal and fur. "Push it off," my panic roared. With a surge, I heaved it aside, gasping, bruised, my wrist throbbing. It tried to kill me. A memory flashed, a janitor's tale of a machine starting alone, dismissed as a prank. I staggered outside, the store's silence a predator, watching, waiting for my return. The nightmare didn't end with my escape. I called my boss, voice trembling, reporting the animatronic's attack, my wrist pulsing with pain. "Finish your shift," he snapped, accusing me of lying, demanding footage. "I'm done," I retorted, citing injury, only to be fired on the spot. Let it go, I thought, but the store's shadow clung to me. I could have sued, fought for justice, but I wanted freedom from that place. Was it just broken? I still see those eyes, feel the claw's grip, hear the laughter. Something lived there. A classmate once swore the arcade hummed at night, machines alive with malice. That story haunts me now, a truth I can't shake. Some places hold darkness. Years later, I pass the building, its sign dark, but I feel its gaze. Certain the animatronic waits, its mechanical heart beating, ready to pull me back into its embrace where dreams turn to terror. Some games are meant to scare you, but what if the fear is real? As a freshman in college, I craved the comfort of home, so I returned to my small town a week before Halloween, just as the county fair rolled in with its autumn glow and eerie charm. The air was crisp, scented with caramel apples and hay, the fairground alive with laughter and twinkling lights. I took my little sister and her 2 middle school friends, their giggles a nostalgic soundtrack as we wandered through stalls and rides. This is home, I thought, letting the warmth of the moment wrap around me. But the fair had a haunted house, a looming structure draped in fake cobwebs, its entrance guarded by actors in ghoulish makeup. I'd never been allowed inside as a kid, and now, at 19, the thrill called to me. My sister and her friends, though, were terrified, their eyes wide at the blood-smeared actors lurking outside. "No way," my sister whispered, clutching her friend's arm. I teased them, eager to dive into the scares, but they clung to the safety of spinning teacups and carousel horses. "Come on," I urged, but their fear was unshakable. Hours passed, and as hunger set in, I saw my chance. "I'll buy you anything you want to eat," I promised, "if you go through the haunted house with me." Their reluctance wavered, and I felt a surge of excitement. "It's just a game," I told myself, ignoring the unease that prickled my skin as we joined the line, the house's dark maw waiting to swallow us whole. When the walls close in, you realize some traps aren't meant to let you go. The line for the haunted house snaked through a fog of artificial smoke, the air thick with the stench of dry ice and cheap perfume. My sister and her friends huddled behind me, their whispers fading as the actors' screams echoed. "Stay calm," I told myself, hiding my own nerves to keep them brave. But the actors' eyes seemed to linger on me, their painted faces too knowing, too real. By the time we reached the entrance, the girls balked, refusing to go in. "It's too scary," my sister pleaded. Frustrated but determined, I struck a deal with the attendant. "I'll go first, then come back to show them it's fine." She nodded, and I stepped into the darkness alone, the door sealing behind me with a heavy thud. The house was a claustrophobic maze, its narrow halls lit by flickering strobes, walls dripping with fake blood. Actors lunged from corners, their chainsaws buzzing, their laughter sharp. "It's just a show," I repeated, my heart racing as I navigated the twists. Then, in a long, dim corridor, a force shoved me from the right. I stumbled, crashing to the floor, my shoulder throbbing. A door slammed shut, trapping me in a small, pitch-black room. "Is this part of it?" I called out, my voice trembling. "Anyone there?" A raspy voice answered, "Can I borrow your shirt, dear?" My blood ran cold. I fumbled for my phone, its flashlight revealing a storage room packed with mannequins, their blank faces staring, half-dressed in tattered costumes. Among them stood a woman, pale and wrinkled, her bare torso covered only by a lacy red bra, her smile twisted. "Run," my instincts screamed, but the darkness held me captive. "Some nightmares don't end when you wake, they follow you home." The woman's voice grew closer. "Check your eyes, dear, I'm right here." I spun, my flashlight catching her sagging skin, her eyes glinting with malice. "She's real." Footsteps echoed, heavy and uneven, not hers. Someone else was in the room, hidden among the mannequins. "You're not alone." My heart pounded as I scrambled for the door, my fingers grazing its handle. A hand clamped my wrist, cold and strong, prying at my phone. "No!" I kicked wildly, connecting with something solid, and yanked the door open. I fled, shoving past a startled fairgoer, ignoring the actors' shouts to stop. The maze blurred, my breath ragged until I burst through the entrance, gasping under the fair's garish lights. The attendant stared, her expression torn between confusion and amusement. "What's wrong?" she asked, but I couldn't speak, my eyes scanning for my sister. They were gone. Where are they? Panic surged as I ran through the crowd, finally spotting them at a food truck, laughing with a man handing out churros. His smile was too wide, his eyes too eager. "He's one of them." I grabbed the girls, dragging them away despite their protests, their voices fading as we sped home. No one believed me, not my family, not the police I called later. "Just a scare gone too far," they said. But I know what I saw. That house wasn't a game. It was a hunting ground, staffed by predators like that woman and her son, luring victims with free treats and false safety. They're still out there, I think, every Halloween, their eyes searching for the next prey, and I'll never step into a fair again. The darkness of the haunted house swallowed me whole, my vampire fangs gleaming under flickering lights. But it wasn't the screams of guests that chilled my blood. It was the laughter of two monsters, their drunken eyes promising a horror, far worse than any costume could conjure. In my freshman year of college, I was still tethered to my small hometown, a place where dreams of stardom felt like chasing stars in a sky too vast. Theater was my passion, but my school's drama program was a ghost, and acting gigs were as rare as rain in a drought. So when I saw a flyer for volunteer scare actors at the fall festival's haunted house, I leapt at the chance, unpaid or not. The role was a vampire, not a grotesque blood-dripping fiend, but a cheesy Dracula, complete with a cape and plastic fangs. Rehearsals took place in a drafty warehouse, the set a maze of flimsy plywood walls that wobbled with every step. My job was simple: hide, jump out, hiss and snarl, then retreat for the next group. It felt silly, like a child's game, and I doubted it would scare anyone over 10. But the makeup, pale powder, dark eyeliner, prosthetic teeth, hid my face, giving me a shield to unleash my inner performer. Step into the role, become the monster, and no one will see you. Feel the pulse of the crowd, their footsteps a rhythm of chaos, drawing you deeper into the night. The festival night was electric, the air sharp with autumn chill and the scent of popcorn and hay. The haunted house buzzed, guests streaming through every 30 seconds, their shrieks and giggles echoing off the thin walls. I threw myself into the role, lunging from my hiding spot, my cape billowing, my voice a guttural hiss. Some flinched, some screamed, others laughed, their reactions a blur as the hours wore on. My throat burned from the constant snarling, my body aching, but the crowd's energy kept me going. Then halfway through the night they appeared, two guys my age, stumbling, their eyes glassy with liquor, their laughter cruel and jagged. They didn't flinch when I leapt out. They roared with mockery, their voices slurring insults that cut through my costume. "Nice fangs, loser," one sneered, his breath sour with beer. I moved to retreat, but one called my name, sharp and piercing, stripping away my vampire guise. They know me. They were from my school, their faces vaguely familiar, now twisted, with drunken malice. I stayed in character, hissing, "No one here by that name," but it only fueled their laughter, a sound that grated like broken glass. Frustrated, I broke the act, my voice low but firm. "Move on, you're holding up the line." Their smiles vanished, replaced by snarls. They stepped closer, their voices rising, promising to kick my ass if I dared speak again. Their words turned venomous, spitting homophobic slurs, mocking my dream of acting, each insult a blade to my pride. "Don't back down, but don't provoke them." I apologized, explaining the need to keep the line moving, but they ignored me, only backing off when the next group approached, their eyes burning with hate as they muttered threats and shuffled away. See, their shadows linger, their grins a promise of vengeance, waiting in the dark. The night dragged on, my voice a rasp, my body heavy with exhaustion. The crowd thinned, the chaos fading, but their laughter echoed in my mind, a warning I couldn't shake. As the final guests were announced, I braced for one last performance, the warehouse eerily quiet, the other actors' scares falling flat. I listened for footsteps, my heart pounding, and then I leapt, screaming, only to freeze. There they were again, the same two, swaying, drunker than before, their grins wide and wicked, eyes glinting with something feral. One reached into his waistband, pulling out a stick, sharpened to a point like a stake for a vampire's heart. "Back to finish the job," he slurred, waving it mockingly. His friend cackled, suggesting the stake go much lower, his words dripping with vile intent. My stomach churned, their joke no longer a game but a threat. Before I could speak, they lunged. One grabbed my neck, his arm a vice, his hand clamping over my mouth, stifling my scream. The other seized my legs, dragging me into my hiding spot, the curtain falling like a shroud. I thrashed, my boots scraping the floor, my hands clawing at the arm, choking me. But they were stronger, their laughter a sick chorus. "Fight, or you're done." The one with the stake tugged at my costume, his fingers rough, his voice urging his friend to squeeze tighter as my vision blurred, the world narrowing to a tunnel of pain. My lungs burned, my body weakening. But in my desperation, my foot struck the wall, the hollow thud a reminder of its fragility. With all my strength I kicked, the plywood splintering, the sound a beacon in the dark. They cursed, trying to pin me, but another actor's voice rang out, calling for help, their footsteps pounding closer. The attackers scrambled, releasing me as they fled, but security caught them at the exit, their drunken stumbles no match for sober pursuit. I gasped for air, my throat raw, my body trembling as I stumbled out, the warehouse's lights harsh against my bruised skin. The festival's on-site police arrived, their radios crackling, but their response crushed me. "Just a Halloween prank," they said, dismissing my terror, letting the two go with a warning. They tried to hurt me and no one cares. I stood there, shaking, the stake's point still vivid in my mind, their grins seared into my memory. Feel their eyes on you, even now. Their smiles a threat that never fades. Back at school I see them almost daily, their faces unchanged, their smirks a silent taunt. They know they escaped justice, know they could try again. The haunted house was meant to be a stage for my passion, but it became a trap. Its thin walls a mirror of my vulnerability. I'd planned to stay in my hometown, earn my bachelor's degree surrounded by the familiar, but not anymore. As soon as I get my associate's degree, I'm transferring, leaving behind their faces, their laughter, their stake. The festival is long over, but the fear lingers, a shadow that follows me, a reminder that some monsters wear no masks. Some nights I still feel their hands, hear their laughter, and wonder if the darkness will ever let me go. At 19, I thought I'd buried my past. 3 years with an abusive boyfriend left me scarred, my old friends stolen by his lies. Start anew, I told myself, entering college. Freshman year gifted me a new circle, untainted by his shadow, their laughter a balm to my wounds. "You're safe now," their smiles promised, and I believed them. By sophomore year, we were tight, and when one got her first apartment, she planned a housewarming party in mid-October. The air carried autumn's crisp bite, leaves rustling underfoot. But the Halloween theme she chose chilled me. "It's just a party," I reasoned, ignoring my unease. Fear clung to me, a residue of his cruelty, making every shadow a threat. Why Halloween? A high school memory surfaced. A friend's prank in a haunted maze trapping me in panic, his laughter echoing his. I shook it off, but the party loomed, its festive mask hiding something darker. As I walked to her apartment, the streetlights flickered, the night's pulse quickening, whispering that my past wasn't done with me, ready to resurface in the glow of jack-o'-lanterns. The apartment pulsed with Halloween's eerie glow. Jack-o'-lanterns grinned, fake cobwebs draped. The walls in a horror movie flickered on the screen. "Stay calm," I whispered, my heart racing. Fear was my enemy, sharpened by years of his abuse, making every jump scare a blade. Why this movie? I pleaded for a comedy, but my friends' laughter drowned me out, their eyes glinting with mischief. Escape, my mind urged, and I turned to vodka, its burn numbing my dread. Glass after glass, I sank into the couch, the room spinning, until I passed out. Dreams swallowed me. Demons chased me, their faces his, claws tearing at my soul. I woke to a pounding skull, nausea twisting my gut, sweat soaking my clothes. "You're okay," I lied, but the hangover was merciless. My friends dragged me to a diner, the smell of eggs and coffee choking me. Why don't they care? A cousin's tale of a prank gone wrong, leaving her trembling, echoed in my mind. Their indifference stung, their chatter a wall I couldn't breach. The Halloween event loomed, a ticket bought for me, trapping me in their plans. The night's shadow growing, promising to unearth the terror I'd buried. The amusement park glittered with Halloween's dark allure. Neon lights and eerie music filled the air, but my hangover clung, a fog of dread. "You can do this," I told myself, trailing my friends, their laughter sharp. A man with a chainsaw lunged from the shadows, his blade a roar, and my scream tore, free panic seizing me. "It's fake," they giggled, but my heart hammered, breath shallow. Why am I here? In line for the haunted house, I glimpsed him, my ex, his face fleeting among the crowd, eyes locking with mine. He's not real, I thought, but he vanished when I blinked, reappearing at corners, a ghost in the chaos. Is he following me? I asked a friend if she saw him, her laugh dismissive, but her tone felt wrong, secretive. "Trust them," I urged, but doubt festered. A schoolmate's story of seeing her abuser in a crowd only to find no one haunted me. Am I losing it? The line moved, the haunted house's maw nearing, its darkness promising to blur dream and reality, ready to pull me into his shadow once more. The haunted house swallowed us in darkness. Shadows danced, actors leapt out, their threats of death, slicing the air. Stay low, I told myself, eyes on the floor. My friend's footsteps a frail anchor. The air was thick, damp, the walls closing in, each turn a trap. Keep moving, I urged, but fear choked me. We entered a metal room, blood-streaked, a torture chair gleaming under a masked man's bone saw. "Who's next?" he taunted. And my friends giggled, shoving me forward. "No," I stumbled, the saw's hum deafening, my scream lost in their laughter. "Get away," my panic roared, and I backed into a corner, trembling. Then, a hand gripped my shoulder, familiar, cold. "He's here." I turned and my ex stood there, smiling, his arms reaching. Not real. I fell, scrambling, pointing, but he was gone, my friends' stares mocking. "You're crazy," they said. But a memory hit. A night he'd grabbed me, his grip the same. Run. Now. An emergency exit glowed. I bolted, the alley outside a refuge, the night's weight crushing, his shadow still chasing. Freedom came, but not peace. I cut ties with those friends. Their laughter a betrayal I couldn't forgive. Was it real? I hid at home, my mother's arms a shield. But nightmares returned, my friends watching me die. His face ever present. He's gone, I told myself, but waking to his shadow at my window, crawling through, stole my breath. Just a dream? My father found me screaming, the window barely open, no trace of him. What happened? His call stopped that night, a silence louder than his threats. Did they plan it? A roommate's story of a prank driving her to paranoia haunted me, mirroring my doubt. Trust no one. I wonder if my mind broke, weaving him into the park's chaos, or if he was there, a ghost of my pain. Some truths stay buried. I'll never enter a haunted house again, the line between dream and terror too thin, his shadow waiting to claim me. When the weight of family drives you to the wild might claim you. My wife and kids love my parents' ranch, a sprawling haven in the sticks where open fields give way to dense, untamed forest. It's a place of freedom for them, but for me it's a battleground. My wife invited her parents for the weekend and her mother's sharp tongue cut deeper than any knife. By midnight, her criticisms echoed in my head, robbing me of sleep. Get out, I told myself, craving escape. Hunting has always been my solace, the forest a refuge where I can breathe. So at 4 a.m. I scribbled a note for my wife, grabbed my dad's old bolt-action rifle, and slipped into the pre-dawn chill, my gear slung over my shoulder. The air was sharp, heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth, the stars fading as dawn crept closer. I hiked to an old hunting blind, a weathered wooden perch tucked deep in the woods, its familiarity a comfort. Settle in, I thought, climbing the creaky ladder. The blind was small, its walls scarred by years of wind and rain, but it felt like a fortress against the chaos I'd left behind. I set up my camp stove, the faint hiss of gas a soft rhythm, and leaned back, expecting a quiet nap until sunrise. Just a few hours, I promised myself, unaware that the forest was watching, its silence hiding something far worse than family quarrels. Some sounds aren't made by animals, and some shadows aren't cast by men. Sleep tugged at me, but a strange noise jolted me awake, guttural, like a beast choking or a man laughing through pain. What was that? My eyes snapped open, the blind's dim interior barely lit by the gray dawn. I stood, rifle in hand, peering through the narrow window. The forest was still, too still, the trees looming like silent judges. Look closer, my instincts urged. Through my scope I caught a flicker of movement, a shape darting behind a tree too quick to identify. Human? My heart quickened, but I stayed quiet, not wanting to scare off whatever it was, or draw it closer. Minutes dragged, the forest holding its breath. I lit my stove again, needing coffee to steady my nerves, the scent of trail mix and chili mingling with the damp wood. Then another sound, closer, a rustle of leaves, deliberate. It's coming. I gripped my rifle, scanning the trees, but saw nothing. Frustrated, I stepped back, only to freeze as a figure appeared outside the blind's door. A man, if you could call him that, skeletal, his skin gray and greasy, hair a thin wisp on a bald scalp. He wore only tattered briefs, his body a map of filth. Who is he? Before I could react, he lunged inside, dropping to the floor where I'd spilled trail mix, lapping it up like a starved dog. His eyes, hollow and wild, never met mine, but his presence filled the blind with a primal dread. Stay still, I told myself, my pulse roaring, unsure if I was hunter or prey. Some encounters leave scars you can't see, and some places never let you go. The man's grunts filled the blind, each swallow a grotesque act, his tongue scraping the floor for every crumb. Is he human? My mind raced, the rifle heavy in my hands, but fear paralyzed me. He finished the trail mix, his head snapping toward the chili container. I slid it across, hoping to buy time, and he seized it, licking the surface with a hunger that turned my stomach. He's not right. As he devoured the chili, his eyes lifted, locking onto mine, empty, yet burning with need. He wants more. I realized too late, I had nothing left to give. Run. The command surged through me. As he crawled closer, his grunts growing sharper, I bolted, shoving past him, the blind's door banging open. I tore through the forest, branches clawing my arms, my breath ragged. The ranch appeared like a beacon, and I didn't stop until I was inside, slamming the door. I called the sheriff, my voice shaking as I described the man, the blind, the hunger. Deputies searched but found no trace, no footprints, no signs of life. My family laughed it off, my wife calling it a wild imagination, but their dismissal only deepened my dread. He's still out there. The forest keeps him, that skeletal thing, and every night I see his eyes, waiting, watching, daring me to return. I'll never go back to that ranch, but the hunger I saw follows me. A shadow. I can't outrun. The forest held its breath as I stepped into its embrace, my rifle a cold comfort against the silence that screamed of something wrong. Late October's chill wrapped around me, but it was the shadowed figures by the fire, their chants a pulse, in the dark, that turned my hunting trip into a descent into dread. It was late October, the world painted in hues of amber and rust, when I carved out a weekend to escape the grind of life. Hunting had always been my sanctuary, a way to silence the noise of deadlines and demands, to feel the earth's pulse under my boots. I'd rented a cabin deep in the woods, its online photos promising solitude. A single room nestled among ancient pines, far from civilization. The drive was a blur of asphalt fading to a narrow dirt road, rutted and treacherous, winding through a forest that seemed to watch me pass. I arrived at dawn, the sun a pale disk barely piercing the mist. The air was crisp, sharp with the scent of pine and damp earth, but the woods were unnaturally still. No bird song, no scampering squirrels, just the crunch of my boots as I unloaded my gear. Feel the silence heavy, alive, whispering secrets you're not meant to hear. The cabin was a disappointment, its walls stained, the floor gritty underfoot, far from the polished retreat I'd imagined. A creaky twin bed, a small kitchen and a fireplace were its only comforts. But it would do. I unpacked, my rifle a familiar weight in my hands, and set out, heading north through the trees, my eyes scanning for deer tracks. Hours passed, the sun climbing and dipping, but the forest was barren. No prints, no rustle, not even the hum of insects. I'd hunted here before, a place teeming with life, but now it felt hollow, as if the woods had been drained of their soul. Unease gnawed at me, but I pressed on, unwilling to let the trip be a waste, my breath clouding in the cooling air. See the fire flicker, its glow a lure, drawing you to the heart of the unknown. As the sun sank, painting the sky in streaks of crimson, I heard it. A faint crackle, a murmur of voices ahead. My heart quickened, hope flaring that I'd found game. I crept forward, my rifle ready, the underbrush parting silently under my steps. Then I saw them 50 yards away through a gap in the trees. 6 or 7 figures cloaked in dark robes, their hoods hiding their faces, standing in a circle around a fire. Their voices rose in a low, guttural chant, a language that twisted, in my ears unnatural, wrong. They swayed, a hypnotic rhythm, their shadows dancing on the trees like specters. My blood ran cold, my grip tightening on the rifle. They don't see you, stay still. I froze, every instinct screaming danger, and began to back away, each step deliberate, avoiding twigs. My breath shallow to keep the forest's silence unbroken. When I was far enough, I turned and ran, branches clawing at my jacket, my mind racing. Who were they? What were they doing out here? The cabin loomed ahead, a beacon of safety. But as I reached the door, my key in hand, dread seized me. The door was ajar, a sliver of darkness within. I'd locked it, I was sure, the bolt's click echoing in my memory. My stomach twisted as I pushed it open, the hinges groaning, and stepped into the gloom. I flicked on the light and chaos greeted me. My bag overturned, clothes and gear strewn across the floor. My sleeping bag torn, its inside spilling like a gutted animal. Someone was here. I swept the cabin with my rifle, heart pounding, checking. Corners under the bed, the air thick with the scent of dust and violation. It was empty, but the violation lingered, a presence I couldn't shake. Hear the storm, its roar a cage, trapping you with what you cannot see. I gathered my things, ready to flee, but the sky betrayed me. Thunder rumbled and rain fell in sheets, a deluge that turned the dirt road into a river of mud. Driving out was suicide, the road's ruts a death trap in the storm. I locked the doors, secured the windows, and built a fire, its crackle a frail defense against the howling wind. I heated a can of stew, but my appetite was gone. Every creak, the cabin, every gust outside a reminder of the robed figures of the intruder who'd breached my sanctuary. Exhaustion clawed at me, my eyelids heavy, but fear kept me vigilant. My rifle across my lap as I sat on the bed, the storm's fury a relentless assault. Sleep came despite my will, a fitful drift, until a sound yanked me awake. Voices low and rhythmic, cutting through the rain's roar. At first I thought it was a dream, a residue of the forest's chant, but as I sat up, the sound grew, a guttural hum that vibrated in my chest. They're here. I gripped my rifle, my pulse a drumbeat, and crept to the window, the glass cold against my palm. Outside in the rain's blur they stood, a loose circle around the cabin, their robed forms swaying, their chants unbroken despite the storm. Goosebumps prickled my skin, my breath fogging the pain. I flung the window open, rain lashing my face, and shouted, "Get the hell out of here!" They didn't flinch, their voices rising, a tide of sound that drowned my threat. "I'll shoot!" I yelled, raising my rifle, its barrel glinting in the firelight. I slammed the window shut, my hands shaking, and grabbed my phone, dialing. "Gibbon?" The operator's calm voice a lifeline in the chaos. Feel their chants, a chain around your soul, binding you to their will. 20 minutes crawled by, each one an eternity. My eyes darting between the window and the door, the figures' silhouettes unwavering. 5 minutes before the police arrived, they vanished, melting into the trees, leaving only rain and silence. The officers swept the area, their flashlights slicing through the dark, but found nothing. No footprints, no trace of the circle, the mud a blank canvas. "Probably kids messing around," one said, his tone dismissive, but his eyes lingered on the forest, uncertain. They escorted me back to town, the cabin's light fading in my rearview mirror, but their words rang hollow. It wasn't kids. Something darker stirred that night, something the rain couldn't wash away. See their shadows still, lurking in the trees, waiting for your return. I haven't gone back to those woods, haven't hunted since. The cabin, the fire, the chants, they haunt me. A puzzle with no solution. Were they a cult, their robes hiding faces I'd never know? Or something older, something the forest itself summoned? The police found nothing, but I know what I saw, what I felt. Their voices in my bones, their presence a weight I can't shed. Some nights I hear that chant, faint as a whisper, calling me back to the circle in the woods. Childhood in the rural wilds shaped me. Our home sat at the edge of a vast forest, its depths a mystery my father revered. One crisp morning he declared it time for my first hunt. "Become a hunter," his eyes urged, and I swelled with pride. We roared miles on ATVs, the engine's hum blending with the forest's pulse. The trail split, too narrow for wheels. "Hike a mile to the blind with the red ribbon," he said, pointing down a shadowed path. "One per blind, quieter that way." "You're ready," he added, but the forest loomed, ancient and unyielding. I'd roamed its edges, but never this deep. What's out there? Confidence carried me, yet a neighbor's tale of a hunter lost, his gear found untouched, stirred. Unease. I pushed it aside, gripping my rifle, the metal cold against my palms. The trees closed in, their branches whispering secrets, the air thick with earth and moss. This is your moment, I told myself, unaware the forest was awake, its gaze fixed on me, ready to unveil a truth no bullet could touch. The forest swallowed me whole. Alone, I trekked the path, trees towering like ancient sentinels, their canopies blotting out the sky. The air was heavy, laced with pine and decay, each breath a reminder of my smallness. Keep moving, I urged, my boots sinking into damp earth. Birds called, their cries sharp, as if warning unseen allies. Squirrels darted, eyes glinting, spies in a living maze. They're watching, my mind whispered, but I gripped my rifle tighter, its weight my anchor. The forest felt alive, its pulse syncing with my own, a rhythm of unseen eyes. Where's the blind? After an hour, a red ribbon glowed against a tree marking my refuge. I tore it down, fearing it would betray me to the deer. Stay hidden, instinct said, and I crawled into the choy, its wooden walls cold, the scent of moss clinging. You're safe here, I lied, but the forest's hum grew louder, a chorus of life and warning. A childhood story surfaced, my uncle's. Tale of a deer that vanished mid-chase, leaving only silence. Was it real? The trees seemed to nod, their shadows shifting as if the forest knew my purpose. Its gaze unyielding, urging me to see it as more than prey, a realm where I was the intruder. The blind became my prison. Hours stretched, the cold seeping through, my jacket numbing my fingers. Stay still, I told myself, eyes scanning the woods, but only birds and squirrels mocked my vigil. Where are the deer? Enthusiasm faded, replaced by restlessness, the forest's hum a taunt. This is pointless, I thought, my breath fogging in the chill. The sun climbed, then dipped, shadows lengthening, the air biting. Kill something, my frustration growled, a vow to claim any life to prove my worth. Why's it so quiet? The forest's pulse slowed as if holding its breath, waiting for my mistake. What's out there? A friend's story of a hunter hearing whispers in the trees, dismissed as wind, crept into my mind. Is it watching? My hands tightened on the rifle, the metal icy, my heart quickening. The woods felt different now, not just alive but aware. Its gaze heavy, judging. You don't belong, it seemed to say, the silence a warning I couldn't heed. My resolve hardened, the forest's challenge accepted. Unaware it was preparing to show me a truth beyond flesh, a presence that would shatter my hunter's pride. The forest roared to life. A heavy tread broke the silence, a huffing presence. Behind the trees. It's big, I thought, heart pounding as a stag stepped into view, antlers gleaming 50 feet away. Aim steady, I urged, but my hands shook cold and eager. Wait for it. Then another sound, a doe emerged, delicate, moving toward the stag. 2 targets. They closed to 20 feet, my scope trembling. Now. I steadied my breath, finger on the ow, trigger. But the forest turned traitor. Birds shrieked, insects buzzed, a wind howled, chilling my bones. It's alive! My eyes flicked between the deer, and there, between them, stood a figure. No face. A woman, impossibly tall, her form a dark smear, her gaze piercing despite no eyes. She sees me. My blood froze, the rifle heavy. It's not real, I thought, pulling the trigger, but the gun jammed. Useless. She's coming. The deer stared, the figure advanced, dusk swallowing the light. Run! A tale of a hunter seeing a shadow vanish told by my grandfather flooded me. I fled, the forest closing in, her presence a weight, chasing me into the dark. Terror drove me from the blind. I sprinted, branches clawing my skin, the forest's hum a pursuit I couldn't see. Don't look back, I begged, heart hammering, until I reached the trail's fork, my father waiting. What happened? He demanded, but my words faltered, the figure's gaze still burning. She's not real, I lied, but he saw weakness, dragging me back to search. No ribbon, no rifle. Darkness fell, the blind lost, his blame heavy. You failed, his eyes said, but he didn't know. Something stopped me. I swore off hunting, the forest's call now a threat. What was she? A cousin's tale of a spirit guarding the woods, laughed off, haunted me. She's still there. Years later, I dream of her, faceless, standing in the trees, the rifle's jam, a warning. Some places aren't yours. My father searched, never finding the blind, and I pray he never meets her, the phantom who claimed my courage, waiting in the forest's heart.